The colorful universe in your eyes, what are you really seeing? You're looking at a screen and you see a bunch of colors, maybe a blue background, white text, or some bright image. But have you ever stopped and wondered, why am I seeing these colors? And how can our eyes distinguish between over 10 million different colors? It may sound like something out of the realm of the surreal. But in fact, it's one of the most amazing natural abilities humans possess. The ability to perceive color not only keeps us alive, but also allows us to perceive beauty, art, and even emotions, because color is not just physical, it's psychological. So how does the human eye do this? Let's start with the most basic, light. Light, something that seems familiar, but is actually very strange. Every color we see starts with light. But light is more than just something that helps us see objects clearly, or illuminates the road at night. In terms of physics, light is a form of electromagnetic radiation, similar to radio waves, X-rays, or infrared rays. It travels through space in waves and is measured in units called wavelengths. The range of light that the human eye can see is called the visible spectrum, stretching from about 380 to 740 nanometers. Shorter wavelengths appear as violet, while longer wavelengths appear as red. In between those two ends is a continuum of colors that you and I are familiar with: blue, green, yellow, orange. However, here's the amazing thing: the human eye doesn't see light in a rudimentary way. We don't just see the 7 basic colors of a rainbow. Our eyes break down light into millions of shades, thanks to tiny but sophisticated structures called photoreceptors in the retina. Cones, the human color analyzers. The retina is the layer of tissue at the back of the eye where light is focused after passing through the pupil and lens. There are 2 main types of cells in the retina: rod cells and cone cells. Rod cells help us see in low light at night, for example, but don't help us distinguish colors. Cones are the main characters in today's story, because they help us distinguish between different colors. Humans have 3 main types of cone cells, each sensitive to a different range of wavelengths. L. Long, cones, sensitive to red, long wavelength light. M. Medium, cones, sensitive to green light, medium wavelength. S. Short, cones, sensitive to blue light, short wavelength. These 3 types of cells work like the 3 RGB sensors in a digital camera. When light hits the retina, the 3 types of cones respond with different intensities, sending electrical signals to the brain. The brain, specifically the visual cortex in the occipital lobe, processes these signals and creates the sensation of color. For example, when both L and M cells respond strongly, and S cells respond weakly, the brain can interpret the color yellow. If only S cells are highly active, and the other 2 types barely respond, we see blue. But the strange thing is, colors do not exist in reality in the way you think. They are not properties of objects, like mass or shape. Colors are perceptions created by the brain from light signals. In other words, color is a subtle product of perception, not an absolute nature of the world. How do we know there are more than 10 million colors? If we only have 3 types of cone cells, how does the eye distinguish between millions of different colors? The answer lies in the ability to coordinate and compare. Each type of cone cell is not simply on or off, but responds with different intensities depending on the light coming from the object. Imagine each cell has a scale from 0 to 100. When you combine these 3 numbers together, you have a 3-dimensional combination that produces millions of different combinations. Scientists have tested this by having participants distinguish pairs of extremely similar colors, differing only by a few nanometers in wavelength or saturation. Based on human discrimination, estimates suggest that we can perceive anywhere from 1 to more than 10 million different colors. People with superior color vision can see even more. What about people who are color blind? Not everyone has the same color vision ability. About 8% of men and 0.5% of women have some degree of color blindness, meaning one of their 3 types of cones is missing or not working properly. People with red-green color blindness often cannot distinguish between colors like pink, orange, green, brown, etc. because their L or M cells do not respond properly. They do not see black and white, but their color world is less rich, as if the palette were limited. However, there are also extreme cases where the opposite is true. Some women are said to have 4 types of cones, instead of 3. These people are able to perceive a wider spectrum of colors than the average person. They can see Hundreds of shades of color you never knew existed. Conclusion. The human eye is an evolutionary masterpiece. With just 3 types of photoreceptors, we have created a world of incredibly rich and vibrant colors. What you see every day, from the sunlight filtering through the leaves to the painting on your bedroom wall, is the product of a complex visual process between light, your eyes, and your brain. But that's just the beginning. In the next section, we'll explore: why can color influence our mood, memory, and even behavior? Does color exist without an observer? And what happens when the brain makes up colors that the eye can't see? Get ready to enter a world you thought you knew, but it turns out you've only just scratched the surface. Part 2. Color is not just a thing to see, it's a mind experience. In the previous part, we learned about how the human eye distinguishes colors through cone cells and neural processing in the brain. But if you think color is just a product of light and the retina, prepare to change your perspective. Because color is not just something to see, but also something to feel, to remember, to fear, to love, to act on. Color penetrates the mind, shapes emotions, influences behavior, and even leads to strange hallucinations that no one dares to believe are real. Color and emotion. Why red makes your heart beat faster. Have you ever felt hot-headed when you saw red? Or felt peaceful when you walked into a room painted light blue? That's no coincidence. Research in the field of color psychology has shown that different colors can cause different physiological and emotional responses in the brain. Although this effect may vary between cultures, there are some fairly clear common denominators. Red: stimulation, excitement, danger, warning, passion, power. When you see red, your heart may beat faster, your blood pressure may increase slightly, and your brain becomes alert. Blue: calming, creates a sense of trust, reason, and calmness. That is why financial and technology companies often choose blue as their main color. Yellow: stimulates optimism, light, and joy, but can also cause anxiety if used too much. Black: power, luxury, mystery, but also associated with death and negativity. White: clean, pure, simple, but sometimes also feels cold and distant. Of course, how we react to color depends on our personal experiences, culture, and environment. A child growing up on a farm might find brown soothing, while someone else might find it gloomy. The brain invents colors that the eye doesn't see. You might be surprised to learn that sometimes the color you see doesn't exist in the light coming from an object at all. Instead, your brain invents it to fill in the gaps. The most famous phenomenon is color illusion. Think back to the blue and black or white and gold dress photo that caused controversy around the world a few years ago. Some people saw the dress as white and gold, while others saw it as blue and black. No one was wrong, it's just that everyone's brain processes light and contrast differently. The reason is that color is not absolute data, but the product of visual reasoning. The brain constantly adjusts colors based on the surrounding context, light, shadows, background colors, previous experiences. It's like the brain is doing real-time Photoshop for every image you see. Another example is impossible colors like red, green, or yellow, blue, colors that you can't physically see, but with special techniques, scientists can make you feel them just by tricking the brain. The brain is the most talented colorist in the universe. It's strange, light is inanimate, the eye is just a sensor, but when both are combined with the brain, the world is suddenly filled with color. It's like a painter without brushes, without paint, but can create masterpieces with his own neural imagination. An interesting experiment: volunteers were given a scent in a green room, then moved to a red room and given the same scent. Surprisingly, they described the scents differently. Some said the smell was stronger, more intense in the red room, even though nothing had changed. Color affects not only vision, but also cross-modal interactions with other senses, a phenomenon called cross-modal perception. It is the basis for a synesthetic experience, where sounds can have color, or colors can taste. There is even a small group of people who actually perceive sounds as colors, or letters as taste. This is synesthesia. For them, the letter A can be red, and the musical note C is blue. They are not imagining, it is how their brains actually work. Color, would it exist without humans? This is a controversial question among physicists, philosophers, and neuroscientists. Is color real? According to physics, light is just an electromagnetic wave. The wave has a frequency, a wavelength, and energy, but it has no color itself. Color only appears when light interacts with a nervous system that can decode it. That is, in the dark, color does not exist. And if no living thing can perceive it, then light has no color either. In other words, color is a creation of the brain, not a fixed property of the physical world. This raises profound philosophical questions. Is the world you see really the real world? Or is it just a brain-generated model to help you survive? Why do humans need to distinguish so many colors? In evolution, the ability to distinguish colors provided a huge survival advantage. Ancient people needed to recognize ripe fruit from green foliage. They need to distinguish skin color, fur color, blood stains, poisonous water. All are associated with color. Primates, including humans, have evolved to have richer color vision than many other animals. That is why dogs and cats only see basic colors, while humans can distinguish up to millions of colors. And in modern society, color has become an aesthetic language, a cultural signal, a psychological symbol. The color of flags, the color of shirts, the color of decorations, even the color of class, all originate from the superior color perception ability of the human eye. End of part 2. We have gone through a journey from physical light to the colorful human mind. You begin to understand that color is not just something to see, but something to experience. It is an emotion, a memory, a cultural symbol, and a sophisticated deception of the brain. But the story isn't over yet. In the final part, we'll explore: why can some animals see colors that humans can't? Could technology expand human color vision in the future? And finally, if you could see more than 10 million colors, could you create new ones? That's the most magical part, and also the most hopeful. Part 3, Unseen Colors, the Future of Human Vision. If you've been following along, you've probably figured out that color isn't just light, it's a mental experience. The human eye, with its 6 million cone cells, 3 types of photoreceptors, and a superbrain, can perceive over 10 million different colors. But is that really the limit? Or are there other worlds of color beyond the reach of the human eye? Today, we will enter the realms of color that humans have never seen, but still exist. And we will ask, will we one day see them? Creatures that can see colors that humans cannot. Here is a humble truth: humans are not the most visually powerful species. Although we have evolved to perceive colors better than most mammals, we still lose out when compared to other extraordinary creatures. 1. Mantis shrimp. It may sound funny, but this tiny crustacean possesses a visual system that surprises scientists. While humans have 3 types of cone cells, each type is sensitive to a range of colors: red, green, blue. Mantis shrimp has 12 to 16 types. This means they can see colors in the ultraviolet, UV, spectrum, and perhaps even distinguish combinations of colors that we can't even imagine. If the human eye is an HD TV, then the mantis shrimp's eye is a super ultraspace screen. 2. Some birds and insects. Birds, bees, and butterflies often have the ability to see in the ultraviolet spectrum. Flowers that appear monochrome to humans appear as brilliant UV patterns to bees, like honey naps leading to pollen. 3. Humans with a genetic mutation, tetrachromats. The most surprising thing, among humans, there are some very rare individuals, mainly women, who possess tetrachromatic vision. They have 4 types of cone cells instead of 3, thanks to a mutation on the X chromosome. The average person sees 10 million colors, but a tetrachromat can distinguish up to 100 million colors, so many that they describe colors that others cannot imagine or name. Expanding human vision with technology. If nature has given mantis shrimp a richer world of color than humans, humans have something else: creative intelligence. Today, scientists and technologists are trying to expand artificial vision, and even intervene in the nervous system to help humans see things they have never seen before. 1. Ultraviolet and infrared spectroscopy. There are devices that have been developed to convert light beyond the visible spectrum, such as UV or IR, into images that the human eye can perceive. Even though we do not see directly, the brain still sees the information through the medium. 2. Optic nerve implants. Scientists have experimented with implanting microchips or electrodes directly into the optic nerve or visual cortex, to feed color information from external sensors into the brain. The goal is not only to cure color blindness, but also to add new colors to the current sensory system. 3. Devices like a third eye, the Eyeborg project. Artist Neil Harbison, who was born colorblind, has a device called the Eyeborg attached to his head. It helps him convert colors into sounds. For him, sound is color, and color is music. It is not just a supporting tool, it is a completely new artistic experience. The question is, in the future, can you implant sensors for extreme purple or non-existent green, and feel them as real colors? Can you create new colors? This question sounds silly, because we create new colors every day when mixing. But what we are actually doing is combining known colors, based on 3 basic sensory channels. So what about colors that have never existed in the human nervous system? Neuroscientists have experimented with creating unreal colors, as mentioned above, by forcing the eyes to see 2 polar opposite colors, like red-green, at the same time, confusing the brain and creating strange hybrid colors. The result? Some people describe the feeling of seeing a color that cannot be named, as if the brain has just discovered new land. In theory, if we add a 4th or 5th perception channel, we will have to expand the entire color map, creating completely new color axes, and then the concept of creating new colors really becomes possible. When color becomes a tool for communication and healing. More and more research shows that color does not only have a passive effect on emotions, but can also be used as an active therapeutic tool. 1. Light therapy. Applied in the treatment of seasonal affective disorder, SAD, insomnia, mild depression. High-intensity blue light in the morning can help regulate the body clock, improve mood. 2. Color therapy. Although controversial, some therapists use color to create a therapeutic environment. Blue rooms for people who are easily anxious. Pale yellow for people who lack motivation. Orange for people with mild depression. Of course, this is not magic, but it is an example of how powerful color can be on the mind. Conclusion: the universe is colorless, only the human brain colors it. We started this journey with a seemingly simple truth: humans can distinguish more than 10 million colors. But after 3 parts, you probably realized, it is not just a number, but a miracle. Color, which seems to be just light, turns out to be a miraculous product of evolution, mind, emotion, and culture. They not only help us see the world, but also understand, feel, and connect with that world. And who knows, in the future, we may see things we have never seen before. Colors that, at present, we do not have words to name. Because the limits of the eye are real, but the limits of the imagination are not. Thank you for accompanying us throughout this wonderful journey of discovery. If you find it interesting, do not forget to share the video, comment on your thoughts about the most special color you have ever seen, and if possible, imagine a new color. What would you call it?